Hi, everyone. My name is Paulus. This is the Business and Life Made Simple podcast. This is episode number 1. So kind of a cool phenomenon is once you get the first one recorded, like they come a little easier. You feel a little calmer and the words start to come out a little more. And so again, I think just keep bearing with me. I think these will keep getting better and better. So on today's episode, you get to hear from me. And I really just wanted to go a little deeper into why I'm doing this podcast. So really talk about community and why I think forming a community is so important and how you can really contribute to the community. So please tune in. I think you'll find it very enlightening. I definitely had some aha moments of the last few months, realizing that I didn't actually understand the importance of community until the last few months. And so I'm really grateful for the experiences I've had over the last few months to really solidify that for me. And so I just kind of share with you some of those moments that I've had so you can really kind of understand why I think community is important and us all kind of getting together around a few common principles. So with that being said, here's our little jingle and then we'll get right in.
No, it doesn't have to be so hard. 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 Business and life made simple.
So in this podcast, I've been really thinking about what I want to talk about as my first podcast and about something to really expand on the intro that I did and really what simplifying business and life is all about. And I just started to reflect on my journey and where I've come. And I was thinking about some kind of aha epiphany moments I've had over the last few months. And it's interesting because I feel like whenever there's something that I should learn or change in my life or change my mindset on, I feel like it starts to come at me from so many different angles. I get articles about something or people I meet or groups I talk with, and it seems to all be around this same topic. And so I just look at that as not coincidence and something that I'm supposed to really reflect and learn from. And really over the last few months, the big thing for me has been communities and the importance of communities. And while I always, look back over my notes over the last few years of some writings I've done, and community has always been a big part of what I knew I wanted to build, but I don't think I ever truly believed it intrinsically like I do now. If I kind of my journey, I've been codependent in some of my past relationships, and although I've always never really put my happiness in other people, I realized I thought I could help make other people happy, and I became dependent on trying to change them or help them, and so it got me on this path of learning about codependency and how unhealthy that is. And so I started to swing full extreme the other way of becoming very almost independent of, we're in charge of our own happiness. And while we are in charge of the things that, we do and the choices we make, and at the end of the day, we are in charge of our happiness. I think to really, truly be happy and have true joy, it really does take a community and people. And I think, we are very emotional beings, and that's such an important part of all the basic needs that we all have. I think, we have the physical needs and the intellectual needs and the spiritual needs. And I think the fourth one is emotional. And another kind of word for emotional is really the social aspect of our needs as humans. And so I've really been reflecting on that. And the first thing over the last few months, well, let me to back up. So going from this codependent stage to more independent, I realized I had to kind of get back into the middle and realize that we are interdependent beings, and we're meant to be that way. And really the big first kind of push at me to really reflect on this was an opinion article by a New York Times columnist named David Brooks. And he had been a journey himself with just some struggles and things he's had. And he did an article, it's titled 5 Lies Our Culture Tells. And it says the cultural roots of our political problems. And while I'm not here to really get deep into religion or politics or anything like that, I feel like it really hit me, because really, if we can solve our cultural problems, and there's a lot of the other problems will go away. And I think that he was spot on with the 5 lies he tells. So I think to start, I'd actually like to tell you his 5 lies, because this was really the first article that hit home with me. He did a TED talk on it, and he's had several other talks, and he's really kind of devoting his life now to really talking about this concept. And so his first lie that he mentioned was that career success is fulfilling. And I think so many of us try to work harder, especially in America. I've learned the more I meet people overseas, like we really don't have it all together in this department. We think that working more and devoting our, trying to get that big win or that big success in our career is what's going to fulfill us. And it's definitely a lie that we're telling ourselves, and that's going to make us happy and fulfilled, and that life will be great. And so I think it's important to, that's a big part of obviously what I want to talk about in this podcast, is creating that freedom lifestyle for yourself, and developing a more balanced life when it comes to what we do in our life. So the other lie is that I can make myself happy. And I think this is one that I often believed myself, because I really feel like I have contributed to my success, but I think, or not my success, but my happiness. And but it's not completely an individual accomplishment. And let me just see it. I'm going to find a quote that he says about it, because he kind of tells it better. He says, "But people looking back on their lives from their deathbeds tell us that happiness is found amid thick and loving relationships. It is found by defeating self-sufficiency and for a state of mutual dependence. It is found in the giving and receiving of care. It is easy to say you live for relationships, but it's very hard to do. It's hard to see other people in all their complexity. It's hard to communicate from your depths, not your shallows. It's hard to stop performing. No one teaches us these skills." And so, and he calls it the lie of self-sufficiency, that we think we have to create. It's about happiness as an individual accomplishment. And it's really about those deep, intimate relationships that we form, and that connection that we share with each other that really can truly make us happy. And so the other lie is that life is an individual journey. And especially lately, I think so many of us are so afraid of commitment, or we believe it's free. I talk about freedom, but freedom, there's different ways you can define freedom. I'm not talking about, encouraging us that, like he actually says it here, this lie encourages people to believe freedom is the absence of restraint. Be unattached, stay on the move, keep your options open. He says, in reality, the people who live best tie themselves down. They don't ask, what cool thing can I do next? They ask, what is my responsibility here? They respond to some problem or get called out of themselves by a deep love. And they said, by planting themselves in one neighborhood, one organization, or one mission, they earn trust. They have the freedom to make a lasting difference. It's the chains we choose that set us free. So I just really love that. So, and then the next thing he mentions is you have to find your own truth. And this is really spot on to me, because a lot of times people don't even believe there's truths anymore as either. And instead of feeling like you can find truths between, or that society together creates certain, let's see, how do I explain this? So a lot of times everyone's like, choose your own values, choose your own answers to life. And while part of that is good, in reality, it's really the values that are passed down from communities and institutions and people together that can create a movement and create change. And it's creating these truths. If we all believe in certain level of truth and a certain level of values that we can all get behind, then as a community, like, that's where amazing things can happen. If we're all kind of creating our own journey and our own values and our own things in our own moral compass, then it's really hard to create a level of community. And so we're all wondering why in a world that is full of communication and so many ways to connect, why so many of us feel disconnected. Well, why is addiction so strong? Why is depression so rampant? I think we're doing something wrong in the midst of all of this. And so I really believe that, let's figure out a few truths that we can all agree on and get behind, and then as a society do that. And so I just really thought he was really spot on with that. And he just says it so beautifully. So I'm just going to read kind of this paragraph that he said. The reality is that values are created and passed down by strong, self-confident communities and institutions. People absorb their values by submitting to communities and institutions and taking part in the conversations that take place within them. It is a group process. And then I think this is the last lie, is he says, rich and successful people are worth more than poor and less successful people. And I think we know that, like we say that, but then I don't know if we really believe that, because like our actions don't really, think about the people that we're following, or what we're always striving to have the nicer car, or we're competing with each other and stuff, and we're thinking that that's going to make us happy, yet we're, again, depressed, addicted, and an unhappy people. And so with that, this one just really struck a chord with me. I realized I was wrong. I had been living this independent mentality of like, I'm in charge of my own happiness, and I'm an introvert, so by nature. So like for me, like sitting on a couch with a book and a blanket, I'm good with that. At least I think that's what I'm good with. But I realized that I needed a certain level of getting out there and just talking with people, and kind of an interesting story. So over the last few months, I've had to do a lot of photo shoots and videos, and for a long time, like I never got family pictures done, or I never got, well, to be honest, so after I had my 3 boys, I'm heavier than I've ever been. I was pretty hot before the 3 boys, and, I guess you could say I'm hot now, but, so now I'm just, and it was really weird, because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be the weight I am, because I have to get my online presence going. I have to go take pictures. And so I started taking pictures, and an interesting phenomenon started to happen when I just got myself out there and just exposed myself in that way. Like I noticed that my self-confidence actually increased, my love for myself increased, because I was forced to love myself for where I am now, and also get out there and be comfortable with who I am now with people. And I realized how much, like, even though I never really suffered a ton from depression or anything like that, I realized my level of joy was a lot more by getting myself out there and being just real and authentic with people on my journey. And so it wasn't necessarily, the photo shoots was a means to an end of getting myself out there and saying, you know what, I'm not going to not do something because I don't feel comfortable in my own skin doing it. And by doing it and getting out there and building those richer relationships, I feel much better about myself. And so it's kind of a little small story, but it actually made a big impact on me in that way. And so that the biggest, so back to the community, this story that I read by David Brooks was one of the first ones to really impact me. And then kind of, there were several other kind of events that happened to make me realize how important community is. One of them was just this last week, I went to a mastermind event in Palm Springs for a strategic partner of mine. And there were a lot of business owners, a lot of insurance people and different groups. And we really just kind of went around the room and talked about different, just different deep dive into different problems or questions or things about our companies. And it was interesting because it got very philosophical, almost, I would even say spiritual in the answers that were given. Typically, I had actually asked the leaders in the group, and they said typically they're very tactical, strategic questions that are asked or answered in this group. And it was really cool to have all these entrepreneurs together and really ask some really deep, meaningful questions. And you could just feel the need and the hunger around it. And I think as entrepreneurs, it's so easy for us to get, I don't know, it's really lonely at the top. I don't even know any other way to say it, but you just feel alone. And so with other entrepreneurs, it was a great way to connect and realize that we're not alone. And a lot of us are going through the same thing. And so that was kind of another big event that just kind of hit me is like, here's people from, I'm sure, all different religious beliefs, all different political beliefs, and entrepreneurship was, I don't know if it's just that, what it is about entrepreneurship, but it has the ability to unite people and to bring people together. And I just thought that was really cool. So that was another kind of aha moment for me about communities. And then when I was in Puerto Rico a few weeks back as well, for another mastermind with John Lee Dumas, it was interesting because I was talking to him about where I'm at with my company and how I'm at a unique spot where I don't need to be so much in the operations. And he says, really, your main focus now is just building a community. And I thought, yeah, you're right. Like I went back to some old notes and was like, that's kind of the point of me starting my podcast and starting to do all the things that I'm doing is, it's to build this community. And so then I started to reflect, like, okay, why do I want to build this community? And I purchased a course a few months back, and it was mastermind.com, and it's a course done by Tony Robbins, Dean Graziosi, and Russell Brunson. And in this course, there's actually an exercise that you go through, and it's titled 7 Levels Deep Exercise. And what I just thought I would share with you what I wrote in regards to this 7 levels deep. And the whole goal is to take something that you want to accomplish in life and really dig down to the reason, like what's the why and why you're really doing that. And so the first question is, what is important to you about becoming successful? And for me, it really is about building a community or a large group of people that are inspired to improve the human experience by simplifying business and life. And so really everything that I do is like, is it going to improve the human experience for everybody? And so one of the reasons, and then so I dug down into that. So why is it important for me to build this community? And I've always said this many times as like my why statement is to create a movement around people being true to their life purpose. I always think like everybody's got unique talents and strengths, and I just feel like people need to listen to their inner voice more and really do what they feel called to do. So that's like my buzz thing that I'm always saying. And so it was interesting for me to dig deeper past that level because it really got to the root of why I'm doing this. So it's important to create a movement of people being true to themselves too, so that more people have joy. And I think joy is such a big thing. Like even in the midst of our trials, I really believe that we can have joy. And so, yep, that's true. And so why is it important for others to have joy? It's so that people have the time and the energy to serve others, right? If we're all serving others and thinking of other people, how much better will the world be if we're loving other people versus having fear and anger and hatred? Okay, so that's great. So why is it important for have more people serving? And then I wrote, so we can live in a more united world with less addictions. And one thing you'll learn as you listen to more and more podcasts is that I have a lot of experience in my family's life and different things with addictions, and we also have a missionary service that my husband and I do related to addictions. And so you'll find that is actually a big part of my life, and then I realized that really is keeping so many people from having that joy in their life. So that's one way, is unite the world and have less addictions in it, because if there's less addictions, I think we'll have more joy. And so why is it important to live in a more united world? It's so that we have less mental illness, abusive situations, addictions, and I think you think of how rampant depression and addiction is anymore. I think that's a big problem. So why is it important to have less mental illness and all those things? It's so we can have more united families and communities. And I thought, that's it. Like if we can ultimately simplify our businesses and our lives, we will now have the time and the energy to give to our families and then ultimately to our communities. And then that's when magic happens in the world, right? And so I just was really, it was just another kind of great exercise for me to do to really understand why I'm doing this and why am I taking time away from my family to build this community. And a while ago, it's probably been over a year ago, I wrote kind of this mini manifesto around this community, and I'll just read this to you. And it says, there is a community forming of people ready to think differently, work differently, and live differently, where being and becoming is more important than doing, where success is not wealth, but our truest and deepest desires, talents, dreams, needs, and the necessary pursuit of these. And so I believe so much in the journey and actually making sure that we find joy in the journey. I think so many people get caught up, oh, after this, then I'll be happy, or after this, I'll be happy. And for a long time, I was like, okay, after this, I'm going to have time again, or I'm not going to be so busy after I do this. Well, I've forgotten that. Like, I realized that I am, like, we're meant to work hard. We're meant to be busy in life. And that's just a part of what I have to deal with, and it's good. It's fun. And I wouldn't really want it any other way. So that's just been, just kind of another moment for me. So let's see. One of the things, as far as our legitimate needs that we need, as I mentioned, is this emotional need. And I think if we don't try to find those groups of people or those friends that are going to be a good influence on us, we're going to find those that are a bad influence of us. And I think most of you have probably heard the quote, how you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. I think it was Jim Rohn that might have mentioned that quote. But we really learn so much more from the people we hang out with than we ever will learn in any of the books that we read. And I think it's, while I love reading books and I love knowledge, I realize that the people we hang out with are so much more important. And so what I'm hoping to do with this podcast and this community is really get people united on a few common principles and really, open our hearts up to loving a little more, having a little less fear, and really, believe in improving the human experience for all. I mean, we're all human and we all deserve to have that level of respect with one another, even if we believe differently. So, this book that I've been reading, I really love it. It's called The Rhythm of Life. And it talks a lot about these emotional needs. It's almost like, I feel like everything I've learned through the School of Hard Knocks, or the things that I've had struggles and journeys with, like this book, like summed it all up perfectly. And so I'll be, I know, taking a lot of snippets from it throughout my podcast too, because I just feel like it's really done a good job of showing how to become that best version of yourself. I think that's ultimately what we're all, or should all, be striving to do, is becoming the best version of ourselves. And I think so many of us get stuck in the whirlwind of life and we don't ever sit back and think, what is it that I should be doing? Like, what is my inner voice telling me to do? And one of the things you'll hear me talk on this podcast, I'm sure many times, about is kind of my opinion of experts. Experts are great. We want to learn from experts, but they're not the end all be all. Like, we have to make sure that we discern when we're listening to people about, what is truth? What is it that I should apply to my life? What's going to work in my life and my situation? And, we are our own greatest judge of what things we should do, along with, I would say, our close friends and mentors can help be that as well. So, and so around this concept, like in this book, they actually talk about one of the greatest emotional needs is intimacy. And a lot of times we sometimes only associate intimacy with our spouses or those really close to us. And I think for me, I've always wondered why. I think back to like my high school years, and I often struggled having really close friends, and I still struggle finding those really close friend connections. And I think the reason is because I've always been really in tune with this concept of intimacy and needing that deep, real, authentic relationship. So if somebody wants to just talk about kind of the weather and the fluff of life, and just, not really getting to the deep things within ourselves and what makes us I don't know, just like our hopes, our dreams, our opinions, our needs, our fears, our failures, our faults, like all of those things, like that, those are the things that I need to talk about when I have friends. And so I just think that so much, you think about social media, and especially as I've started my personal brand on social media, you see a lot of that, like just not the real, like not the authenticity through it. And so it's just been a really on my mind a lot, because like, how can I build my presence and create a community of people by being really real and authentic with you? And it's just so important for me, and I think we all need it. I just think that so often we think, I think we're just hiding behind what our true selves are and pretending to be somebody that we really aren't. And so I guess my goal here is to, I feel like a big part of simplicity is to learn to listen to ourselves again and to learn to feel again. Again, let me see if I actually have it up in my notes of some things I did a long time ago. But so let me scroll here and see. I did another little mini manifesto around fear, and let's see what I have. Okay, so this is kind of, I feel like the way I've really, well, one year I made a New Year's resolution to be more bold, like just with people, or I would say humbly bold, where, I'm obviously nice about it, but I often would not want to offend people or not want to tell them the way I truly felt. And that goal made all the difference in my life. And so this kind of came out of that. And it says, I live passionately. I live with purpose. I enjoy the journey. I have the courage to feel joy, the discipline to feel pain. I am empowered by truth. I lead through authenticity. I have the humble confidence to say and do the hard things. I live the abundant life. And so I think so many of us, we don't realize that to have joy, we sometimes need to have pain. And so there'll be more episodes on that, those type of topics, about purpose, about the journey, about just, I don't know, just all these, I feel like these principles that are so important that so many of us are kind of sweeping under the rug and just not living a very deep life. And so ultimately, to find that simplicity and that joy in life, we have to be willing to dig a little deep to figure out who we are. So that being said, I'll have this be episode number 1. So the goal of this is to help build a community. And I can't do that without you guys. So please spread the word. If you really like this, let other people know about the podcast, get them to join, because I really do want to create a community of people that are like-minded, that believe in improving the human experience, that want to make an impact on the world and inspire others to make an impact on the world, because I feel like together we can do some amazing things. And so that being said, we'll come tune in to episode number 2, and we'll keep going it, and I'll keep doing this and see where we can go. So thanks again, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
No, it doesn't have to be so hard. 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 Business and life made simple.